Hello and welcome back to the Clear English channel. I am your host, Lucy, coming to you from a rather rainy London today. But despite the gray skies, I am absolutely delighted because we are tackling a topic that I know keeps so many of you awake at night. It is that frustrating moment when someone asks you a simple question and you freeze. You know the words, you have studied the grammar, but your brain just stops working. It is the worst feeling in the world, isn't it? To help us solve this, I have invited a very special guest. He is a professor of linguistics at New York University and a true expert in how the human brain processes second languages. Please welcome Professor Henry Nunan. Henry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lucy. It is wonderful to be here, and please call me Henry. Professor makes me feel like I should be grading papers right now.
Henry it is then. Now, Henry, I want to jump straight into the deep end today. We have a title for this episode that might make a few people angry. We're saying why you still translate in your head, and the subtitle is, It is not vocabulary.
Right.
That is a bold claim, because almost every student I teach tells me, Lucy, I need more words. If I just learned 500 more words, I would stop translating. Why are they wrong?
Well, let me start with a story. A few years ago, in New York, I had a student from Brazil. Let's call him Roberto. Roberto was brilliant. He could read the New York Times. He knew words like ubiquitous and ephemeral. His vocabulary was actually larger than the average American teenager's vocabulary.
I have students just like that.
Exactly. But one day, Roberto came to my office looking absolutely defeated. He tried to order a sandwich at a deli, a busy New York deli. The guy behind the counter asked him what kind of bread. And Roberto froze. He stood there for 10 seconds. He started translating bread from Portuguese. Then he started thinking about the grammar of ordering. And by the time he opened his mouth, the guy behind the counter had moved to the next customer. Roberto didn't lack vocabulary. He knew the word for bread. He knew the word for wheat, rye, and sourdough. The problem wasn't the database of words. The problem was the operating system. He was running a translation program instead of a direct connection program.
That is such a powerful metaphor, the operating system. So you're saying that adding more files or more words to a broken operating system just makes the computer slower.
Precisely. Think about it like a backpack. If you're trying to run a race and you're slow, adding more equipment to your backpack won't make you faster. It will weigh you down. Most students are carrying a heavy backpack of words they don't know how to use instantly. They're hoarding words. But when it comes to speaking, speaking is a reflex. It's not an academic exercise.
I love that. Speaking is a reflex. So let's break down the mechanics of this. What exactly is happening in the brain when we translate? Because it feels instant, but it obviously isn't.
It feels instant only if you're doing it slowly in a safe room. But in conversation, it's a disaster. Here's the process. Someone asks you, "How was your weekend?" Step 1, your ears hear the English sounds. Step 2, your brain decodes those sounds into English words. Step 3, and this is the trap, you take those English concepts and you find the equivalent sentence in your native language. You say to yourself, comment s'est passé ton weekend, or whatever your language is.
Right, you anchor it to your mother tongue.
Yes. Step 4, you formulate your answer in your native language. It was good. I went to the park. Step 5, you translate that answer back into English. Step 6, you check the grammar. Is it went or goed? Is it to the park or at the park? Step 7, you finally speak. That's 7 steps. A native speaker has 2 steps: hear concept, release concept. You're doing 5 extra steps for every single sentence. No amount of vocabulary will speed up a 7-step process.
It sounds exhausting just listening to you describe it, and I think that explains why so many of our listeners feel physically tired after speaking English for just 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. It's cognitive overload. Your brain is burning glucose at a rate that's unsustainable. That's why you get headaches. That's why you feel that brain fog. You're doing the work of a professional United Nations translator, but you're trying to do it while having a casual chat at a coffee shop.
So if it's so inefficient and if it makes us feel so bad, why do we do it? Why does the brain cling to translation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It comes down to one thing: safety.
Safety.
Yes. You see, your native language is your safe space. It's where you have total control. You know exactly what you mean when you speak your own language. When you step into a new language, English, it feels like walking into a dark room. You don't know where the furniture is. You might stub your toe. So your brain, trying to protect you, grabs a flashlight. That flashlight is your native language. It wants to shine a light on every English word to make sure it matches something you already know.
I see. So it's a defense mechanism. We're afraid of making a mistake, or we're afraid of not being precise.
Exactly. Precision is the enemy of fluency in the beginning. When you translate, you're obsessed with finding the exact equivalent word, but languages don't map perfectly onto each other. If I say saudade in Portuguese, there's no one word in English. If you try to translate it perfectly, you'll pause for 20 seconds. If you just visualize the feeling and say, "I miss it so much," you're fluent. You traded precision for speed. That's a trade you have to be willing to make.
That is a very difficult mindset shift for perfectionists. And let's be honest, many of our listeners are high achievers. They're professionals, doctors, engineers. They're used to being precise.
Oh, the engineers are the hardest to teach. They want a formula. They want input A to always equal output B. But language is messy. Language is biological, not mathematical.
So let's move toward the solution. We've identified the problem. We're addicted to the safety of translation. We have too many steps in our process. You mentioned earlier that we need to switch from translation to visualization. Can you unpack that for us?
Certainly. Let's do a little experiment right now, Lucy. And for everyone listening, I want you to play along.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm going to say a word. I want you to tell me what happens in your mind. The word is apple.
Okay, I see a green Granny Smith apple. I can almost hear the crunch when I bite into it.
Perfect. Did you see the letters A-P-P-L-E written in your mind?
No, not at all. Just the image.
Did you think of the definition, a round fruit with red or green skin?
No, that would be strange.
Exactly. You had a direct link between the sound, apple, and the sensory experience of the fruit. That's how native speakers operate. Now, if I ask a beginner learner and I say apple, their brain often flashes the word in their native language first. If they're Spanish speakers, they might hear manzana internally before they see the fruit.
Right, there's that middleman again.
The goal is to fire the middleman. We want to build a neural pathway that goes directly from the English sound to the image or the concept. We want to skip the native language label completely.
That makes sense in theory, but how do we actually do that? Because I feel like my brain is wired to translate. It happens automatically. How do I stop an automatic process?
You have to retrain the brain with very specific exercises. You can't just will yourself to stop. You have to practice a new way of thinking. I call this the labeling the world technique. Here's how it works. You're walking down the street. Usually you're ignoring everything around you, but for this exercise, I want you to look at an object, let's say a tree. Do not let your brain say the word for tree in your native language. Look at the bark, look at the leaves, and force the English word tree to stick directly to the image.
So you're almost sticking a post-it note on reality.
Yes, but here's the trick. You must engage the senses. Don't just say tree. That's weak. I want you to touch the tree or imagine touching it. Feel the rough bark, and as you feel that roughness, say rough bark. When you engage your physical senses, sight, touch, smell, you're bypassing the language center of the brain that does the translation. You're creating a memory that is physical, not linguistic.
That's fascinating. So by using the body, or at least the imagination of the body, we distract the brain from its need to translate.
Spot on. The translation part of your brain is lazy. If you give it a strong sensory image, it will prefer that image over the text. Let's try another one. This is for abstract concepts because people always ask me, Henry, I can visualize an apple, but how do I visualize democracy or efficiency?
Yes, that's a huge struggle. I was just about to ask that.
It is harder, but the principle is the same. You need a personal symbol. For efficiency, I don't think of the dictionary definition. I think of a high-speed train in Japan. Whoosh, fast, smooth, no wasted energy. That image is my hook for efficiency. So when I want to use that word, I access the image of the train, and the word efficiency comes along with it. I'm not translating, I'm describing a picture in my head.
I see. So you have to do the work beforehand to associate these abstract words with personal images.
Yes, and this brings us back to the counterintuitive strategy we discussed at the beginning. I often tell my students, stop learning new words for 1 week.
1 whole week?
1 whole week. No flashcards, no vocabulary apps. Instead, take 50 words you already know but struggle to use quickly. Spend the week bonding with those words, create images for them, use them in sentences, talk to yourself in the shower using only those 50 words. Turn that passive vocabulary into active, visual vocabulary.
That is such a relief to hear, actually. It takes the pressure off. We are always chasing the next level, the next certification. But you are saying, stop and deepen what you already have.
Deepen, don't widen. If you have a shallow puddle that is a mile wide, it evaporates quickly. If you have a deep well, you have water forever. You need a deep connection with basic English before you add the fancy academic words.
I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about the pause of death. We talked about how translation causes these long pauses, but silence is also scary. How do listeners handle the silence while they are trying to visualize?
That is a very practical problem. When you're translating, you usually go silent or you say, for a long time. This signals to the other person that you're struggling. They might interrupt you or switch to your native language to help you.
Which kills your confidence.
Exactly. It destroys it. So while you're learning to visualize, you need what I call buy time phrases. These are automatic phrases that keep the conversation flowing while your brain is fetching the image. Things like, that is an interesting question. Let me think about that. Or, how can I put this? Or, what I mean to say is...
We call those fillers, right?
Yes, but I prefer bridge phrases. Fillers sound like garbage. Bridge phrases sound sophisticated. If you say, well, it's barely on the tip of my tongue, you sound fluent, even if you're panicking inside. It gives your brain those crucial 3 or 4 seconds to find the image and the word without the awkward silence.
I love that distinction. A bridge, not just a filler. It keeps the connection open.
Yes. Imagine you're on a phone call. If you stop talking for 10 seconds, the other person asks, hello, are you there? You never want the other person to wonder if you've disconnected. Bridge phrases keep the line open.
Henry, I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. There's a listener right now thinking, this sounds great, but I'm 40 years old. My brain is set. Can I really change how I think? Isn't this something only children can do?
I hear this every day. I'm too old. My brain is not plastic anymore. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Is it harder than when you were 6? Yes. Is it impossible? No. I've seen students in their 60s and 70s make this shift.
Really?
Yes. In fact, adults have an advantage. You have life experience. You have more images in your memory bank to associate with. If I ask a 6-year-old to visualize negotiation, they can't. They have no reference. But you've had arguments, business deals, compromises. You have a rich library of emotional images. You just need to link the English labels to those existing memories. The problem with adults is not ability, it's ego. Adults hate looking foolish. Children don't care. To stop translating, you have to be willing to sound a little simple for a few weeks. You have to be willing to use simple sentences that are direct and visual, rather than trying to translate your complex native thoughts.
That's the psychology of safety coming back again. We want to sound smart, so we translate complex thoughts, fail, and then feel stupid. But if we accepted simple, direct, visual English, we'd actually communicate better.
Precisely. There's a quote I love. Do not try to impress. Try to express. If your goal is to impress people with your vocabulary, you'll translate and you'll stumble. If your goal is to express an image from your mind to theirs, you'll find the words.
Do not try to impress, try to express. I'm going to write that down. That is brilliant.
It changed my life when I was learning Japanese. I stopped trying to sound like a professor and started trying to just get my point across. My speed tripled.
Henry, before we wrap up, I want to talk about mistakes. What are the common pitfalls when people start trying this visualization technique? I can imagine people trying too hard and getting frustrated.
The biggest mistake is the hybrid method. People try to visualize and translate at the same time. They see the image of the apple, but then they double-check it with their native language just to be sure. You have to trust the image. It feels like jumping off a cliff without a rope. You see the image, you have the English word, and you just say it. Don't verify it. When you stop verifying, you start speaking fluently.
So it requires a leap of faith.
It does. And the second mistake is giving up too soon. This is a workout. If you go to the gym for one day, you don't get muscles. If you practice visualization for one day, you won't be fluent. You need to do it consistently. Every time you look at your coffee cup, think mug, steam, hot, constantly labeling your reality. Give it 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's a very actionable timeline.
Yes, if you do this intensely for 2 weeks, you'll notice something strange happening. You'll catch yourself thinking in English. You won't even realize you're doing it until after it happens. You'll drop a pen and think, oh no, instead of your native swear word.
That's the dream. Dreaming in English and swearing in English. The true signs of fluency.
Yes, indeed. Once you stub your toe and scream in English, you have graduated.
Henry, this has been incredibly insightful. I think the key takeaway here is that vocabulary isn't the savior we think it is. It's about how we access what we already know.
Correct. Don't be a hoarder of words. Be a user of words. Clear out the clutter in your mind. Turn off the translation machine and start seeing the world in English.
Thank you so much, Henry. For our listeners, I hope this gives you permission to stop studying lists of words for a while and start practicing your visualization. It feels scary, but as Henry said, the safety of translation is actually a trap.
A trap that keeps you slow. Break out of it.
Perfectly put. Thank you again, Professor Nunan.
My pleasure, Lucy.
And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Clear English channel. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please let us know in the comments. Tell us about a time you froze in conversation. We've all been there. Until next time, keep visualizing, keep speaking, and stay clear. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.